Alright, so this is a photo that I'm going to edit from a recent trip up in northern Washington. This is from the Mount Baker area on one of the hikes that I did. I put in about 6 miles on this day. Walked away feeling like a good accomplishment physically, but also I have walked away with a lot of great photos. So we're just going to go through basic touch-ups to add a little bit more life to this, to what to me already looks like an amazing photo. So the first thing that I'm going to do is the photo looks a little dark to me in some areas, so I'm just going to increase the exposure to the overall photo, just to the brightness. Now you see as this goes up, all the highlights, all the whites, they increase, but we can always touch on those in just a moment. I'm going to leave the contrast as it is because I usually work off the highlights and shadows to create that. Anything else that I feel is necessary, I just touch on the contrast. So the first thing that I'm going to do is drop the highlights down. You can really see that happen in the distance, especially in the clouds and then the mountain range. So I'm going to leave those as it is right there. The shadows, bump them up just a little bit. And then I like how the shadows look. I like how the highlights look. But it looks a little flat to me in the image. So that's when I go back and touch the contrast. And I will just bump that up to about 4. If it was 5, it'd be fine, but I'm just going to leave it at 4. So that's just how I like it there. Now I'm going to go to my whites, and I'm editing on a Mac, and a trick to find the balance in your whites or the perfect white is I click on the slider, I hold in the option button, and then the screen goes black. If I bump up the whites, then these colors appear, the whites, the blues, and that's where all your whites are going to be. So if I drag it up more, that's where you see it. So what I do, drag it till I see all the colors or some color, and then I put it back down until they're no longer there. That gives you the perfect white. That's not always the best for images. For this particular photo, I like the way that it looks right now, so I'm going to leave it at that. Next thing that I'm going to do is, since I bumped up the shadows, I'm going to drop down the blacks. So the shadows allow you to see, bumping up the shadows allow you to see what's kind of in the image. And then the black, that gives it a little bit more contrast that we're looking for. So I just dropped those down just a bit. So this is the overall light contrast, the exposure of the image. Anything else that I'm going to do is going to be based on the masking tool and then as well as the individual color sliders in just a moment. So I kind of just work down of what Lightroom gives me. I don't touch the tone curve too much. That's for minor changes. I just like using the sliders at the moment. So the white balance is perfect based on the in-camera settings and the conditions that were given to me that day. So I'm going to increase the vibrance of the image, bring those colors to life. Nothing too much. 31's good. Again, it doesn't have to be 30. I just like the way that is right now. Saturation, I only add a little bit to it. Sometimes too much saturation to me makes it seem a little bit too forced or just not real for that day of what it looked like. And then once I get the overall color created, this is where I go into individual colors. So one thing that I notice is the greens are a little too dark for me, so I'm not going to touch the hue, change the color. I'm not going to add the saturation because I've already touched it in the vibrance and saturation sliders above. What I usually use these for is just the luminance, so how dark the color looks or how bright it looks. The greens to me look a little too dark, so I'm just going to bring those up just a bit. Next thing that I notice is the yellows of the wildflowers. I'm going to increase their brightness too to make them pop some more. And then the small little purple flowers or pink flowers, we'll see what Lightroom decides registers it as. I'm going to make those pop as well. So brightness sometimes takes away the saturation, makes the color look less dull. But again, my advice to editing photos is just to make it how you like it. You're creating this for you. I'm just sharing how I edit my photos, and hopefully you can walk away with something new to add to your editing kit. And then the one last thing that I'm going to do is take a look at the blues of the sky. I like the way that it looks. The sky was very blue that day. I also used a neutral density like filter to help with the contrast of the colors. So I'm gonna touch on the blues. I'm gonna see what it looks like with a little bit brighter. See how it I bumped up the luminance and took away some of the color. That's a little too bright for me, so I'm gonna bring that back down and just leave it like that. So this is an overall light and color saturation changes to this photo. This is what the original looked like. You can see minor adjustments can go a long way to what we have now. So this photo right now, to me it looks great, but not how I like it just a bit. It looks a little too dark. So what I do is start with what I think's right, and then go back to make any small revisions that you find necessary. So this is where I get into a little bit more of the details. So I'm going to take the brush tool. I'm going to cover just the foreground for this brush, best that I can. Not always perfect, but we can just try our best. So from there, I'm going to bring up the brightness just a bit. The next thing that I'm going to do is have a linear gradient. So this kind of fades off, tapers off to the amount of changes. So right there, it's good to me. I'm going to bring down the highlights just a bit to give those clouds a little bit more contrast. And then one more thing that I'm going to do is add a radial gradient. So you can see in the image there's kind of like this pocket of light. I'm really going to lean into that and make this photo just have a little bit more contrast with the lights and darks. Clouds were on my side for this photo. Around each bend I was working with the light, and this scene was too good to not capture. So what I'm going to do for this is bump up the shadows so you can see that a little bit more, crush the blacks, and I'm just going to leave it like that. So this looks good, but there's one more thing. Again, there's all of these little changes that you can make. The little details do matter. And what I try to do is just take it one step at a time. What I've done in the past is edited photos, walk away from them, look at them again. Because sometimes you're too far in it to see what you're really doing. And a fresh mind, fresh pair of eyes can go a long way. So that little white spot of snow looked a little too dark to me, looked kind of gray. So I'm going to touch on the whites. Exactly what it is. Just going to bump that up, make it a little bit more white. Alright. So I think that I'm happy with this. And that's the biggest thing. If you're happy with the photos that you create and edit, that's all you can ask for. Hopefully this helped you. I will be making a lot more of these videos. If you have any comments, questions, or just want to know more about photography, please like, subscribe, and feel free to ask me. I'm always receptive to teaching, and I hope we can learn something from each other.